Okay, so I am now able to start recording leagues again. I haven't been able to for a while because the replay function in Magic Online has been broken, and I've now started using OBS instead. So on to game one of a new league, game one, match one. We're on the draw, and we have an awful hand. It's an instant mull. This new one's much better. Our opponent's mulling as well, which is good for us. We'll see what they go down to, but we're quite okay with this keep. Okay. So we are going to scry this land to the bottom. We don't need any more lands for the meantime. And obviously, as we're on the draw, we'd have to draw it. So our opponent's going to lead on Wasteland Vial, which tells us straight off the bat that they're most likely on Death and Taxes. That would be the most obvious for Wasteland Vial. Fortunately, our hand is really resilient to Wasteland, and it's a hand that, as long as they don't lead on a Thalia next turn, we should be able to win with. Underground Sea is not exactly what we want to be seeing, but that's fine. So we'll just ship the turn back. We don't really want to do anything just yet, and we will just wait and see what happens with our opponent. If we had a slightly different hand, it may have been worth brainstorming turn one to see if we could go for it, but the Underground Sea means it's definitely not worth it. They're going to play Revoker and name Deathrite Shaman, which seems pretty loose to me. I've never played with Revoker myself. We're going to fetch for Basic Island here, by the way. The reason we want to do that is to make sure that we don't draw it. That would just be kind of a little bit counterproductive, and unfortunately we'd see another bad land. So while this Brainstorm's going to be great, the rest of it not so much. We'll ship back Badlands and Tendrils. We don't want the Tendrils just yet. We want a Tutor at the moment. We still obviously, it looks like we have a bit of time. Yeah, so at the moment we have a Revoker on board that's doing nothing. It's named a completely incorrect card, fortunately. Vial onto Wasteland, which is doing nothing, Karakas, which is doing nothing, so the board's looking pretty good for us right now. And Prelate, and he's still a little bit in the dark, and unfortunately picks one, which makes our hand a lot worse. We're not out of the game just yet. We have a Cabal Ritual, we have an LED. If we draw something like a Tutor, we can probably do something here, but we miss. So we're going to play out the C here. The reason being, we still have access to blue and black, even if we get wastelanded, whereas the Volk gives us red. So we can wait a tiny bit for that. And for some reason our opponent's not ticking up his Vial, which I guess means he either has something in hand, maybe an Ethersworn Canonist or something that he wants to be able to Vial in, or I don't know, that's the only thing I can think of. I guess maybe, you know, some better D&T players might be able to flesh out why that is a little more, but as far as I'm concerned, I can't see a reason. Okay, play out our Volk. We have a second Cabal Ritual, so we're looking reasonably good so far. If we can top deck a Tutor, we can actually probably get there. Okay, so we go down to 8. Not out of the game just yet. And draw another LED. We have one more turn. Barring interaction, obviously, from whatever comes off of that vial. So go down to 4. And last chance. And we draw another LED. So that's GG's. We're not doing anything this game. So we're going to go to sideboard. Sideboard here is Disfigure, 2 Dread of Knights, empty the Warrens, cut past in Flames, and bring in a Decay, 2 Decays. We'll cut Duresses, because they're kind of crap in this matchup. Preordain's good, but we can shave 1. Cabal Ritual is kind of, it can be a little bit weak to Rest in Peace. I think we're better off cutting a Cabal Therapy instead. We currently have 4 therapies main deck, and it feels to me like getting rid of a therapy to bring something else in would probably be a better option. And obviously we've now just got to wait for our opponent to submit their sideboard. Unfortunately, it can be a bit hard on Moto to see what's happening. At least in face-to-face, you can see how far along your opponent is with sideboarding. But here we just have to sit and wait. Fantastic. Okay, so I picked it up. And I've cut a therapy and grabbed that last Cabal Ritual, which I think is just plain better. This way we get to keep our combo intact. The only real change to the combo being that we cut a Past in Flames for an empty, with empty being kind of similar in function to Ad Nauseam, and that it gives you an early low storm win con, which is what you really want against D&T. You do try to go under them a little bit. I know some players do like cutting things like more cantrips against D&T. I tend to find the filtering quite useful, coupled with spot removal and things like Dread of Night. So we'll keep this hand. It's a bit slow. It probably should have been a mulligan. The reason being, if we brick on a black land, we're going to be in trouble. And if we don't get the ball rolling fast enough, we're just going to lose. So we'll preordain and see Swamp and Dread of Night, and we're going to keep both of those cards. We need the Swamp, and the Dread of Night will buy us some time while we put the rest of our combo together. And our opponent leads with a fairly slow turn 1. And we'll play out the Ponder, see what we can find. Okay, so that's probably a shuffle. So it might not look like it. We want the LED, and the Cabal Ritual's nice. The reason that's a shuffle is we actually need a tutor more than anything else. That's kind of our bottleneck there, and while it's possible we can shuffle for, like, ponder and shuffle for a tutor next turn, it's something we've got to be a bit wary of. In the meantime, our opponent's going to play a Stoneforge Mystic and drop out and grab a Batterskull. Okay. And we'll play a Ponder, and I think we're going to shuffle that. We're still looking for that Tutor. And instead we find a Tendrils. Which isn't terrible. Tendrils from hand can be quite good. And we find the Tutor, and unfortunately he's with a stack of lands and he's not really going to get us anywhere, so we finally find the Tutor and we have to shuffle. And you can see me counting Storm there, but I'm quite a bit shy, so. And we'll fire off that probe, see what we're working against. Now you can see our opponent here there's nothing really that kind of interacts well with this. They've got the Batterskull, which will get them a clock fairly quickly, so we've got to worry about that. The Council's Judgment, we're not going to stress too much about, is if they cast Council's Judgment to get rid of Dread of Night, then that just means they're not really doing anything else. Horizon Canopy's fine, Recruiter's fine. Past in Flames is probably the best thing we can draw here. With the Badlands in hand, it also means that something that's not so obvious here, there was a Thalia Heretic Cathar in our opponent's hand there. Our opponent's best chance of winning would have actually been to drop Thalia Heretic Cathar here. They're going to play the Canopy in a moment. The reason the Thalia Heretic Cathar cuts us off here is that the Badlands in hand then comes into play tapped, so we have no red source for Past in Flames, which is kind of our bottleneck. It would be our bottleneck at the moment. I think the correct play is probably to wait and to Stoneforge in the Batterskull at the end of our opponent's turn. But the winning line here would be to, from where we are at the moment, we have Storm Count 6 in hand, 7 with Probe, 8, 9. So we're 2 short of killing. So any one of the cantrips would need to find us something we can cast, and that gets us there. We're not too worried about Swords to Plowshares at the moment. So they can plow the Stoneforge Mystic and it just won't get them anywhere. So we're not really going to care about that. Our opponent's tanking pretty hard here. I guess they're deciding whether or not to take care of the Dread of Night now, or whether or not the Batterskull's a better play. So I'm kind of curious as to what our opponent drew to actually make them think this line through to the extent that they are. It's means that maybe we should have been a little more cautious in this coming turn. Anyway, we draw a Brainstorm straight off the top, which is perfect. And we hit an Abrupt Decay and an LED. Now we actually want to put, I think, the LED back because we want the Lotus Petal to cast a cantrip with. And LED would actually empty our hand, making us much softer to something like, say, a Surgical Extraction off the top. Or even just something like Fairy Macabre, which I know D&T does play from time to time. So if we do decide we want the LED, we can always probe into it. But the correct play is here to actually put the LED back. I know it nets us one more storm, but thanks to the dump your hand clause, it's a worse option here. So we're just going to run out all our mana. And we're now going to hit storm count 7, 8, including probe. And with 2 blue sources available, so we should have more than enough. And we're going to probe, see what it is that they drew. And okay, so it was a Flicker-Wisp. I guess maybe they were thinking about flickering Stoneforge to get another piece of equipment, although that doesn't seem great. And I guess we'll just ponder here. Just get our storm count up a tiny bit. Doesn't matter too much here. And I guess we'll just take the ritual, cast it, and we can Tendrils. And steal game 2. So we got game 2 mostly because I think our opponent just didn't really have anything going on. And obviously Dread of Night does a little bit of work there. So we don't really want to change anything up in terms of sideboarding. I don't think there's much difference for us being on the draw or on the play. Our game plan remains pretty similar. And it's possible our opponent is changing their sideboarding a tiny bit, just given they may not have known for sure that we were on Storm, although game 1, what they would have seen would have been fairly likely. Or maybe they're just finding some extra removal for things like Dread of Night, which I guess, you know, while they must have been anticipating to some extent with Council's Judgment, maybe they were, maybe they just have some other bits and pieces they can bring in for it. Maybe a Disenchant or something. Okay, and on to game 3. Of course, we're going to be on the draw for this. And we have a risky but high reward hand. So this hand here is a perfect Past in Flames loop. However, because we're post-board and we don't know what our opponent has in their hand, there's merit in not going for the Past in Flames kill here, and opting for an ad nauseam kill instead, which is, I feel like the correct option is to just jam the Past in Flames kill. And hope it gets us there, and just hope they don't have Fairy Macabre or Surgical Extraction. But instead, I think I opt for Ad Nauseam, which may be a little cute. So I'm kind of tanking here for a bit because I don't know. It's hard to know with this one. There is merit in playing around their hate. I go for the Ad Nauseam. I have mana floating. I'm on 19 life. My odds are reasonably good, but this is one of those times where things could go seriously wrong. So, especially because our mana curve is a little bit higher with some of the removal we brought in. So far, this Ad Nauseam is pretty shit. Although we're starting to hit some petals, which is what, if we don't have, if we're not hitting actual gas, then we want to be hitting petals to just get us further. And we're going to probe, see what we're working against. And you can see we really shouldn't have bothered caring. Our opponent's hand just does nothing. There's a Spiritual Labyrinth, which I guess is okay. And then a Thalia for turn 3. But nothing for us to actually, nothing that we should have been wary about. So we're going to have to run out the petals now and just hope that that gets us there. And I think we have to shuffle that. And we find an LED. Now we need... okay, so that LED that we just found there, because we ditched the Past in Flames before, this just opens us up to a nice Past in Flames kill. We have a stack of rituals in the graveyard, spare tutors, plenty of mana, so we'll just flash back Past in Flames and we'll do it that way. And there we go. They managed to grab game 3 of match 1 on the on the first turn there. So high risk, high reward hand paid off.